This tutorial is going to discuss adding text to your video sequence. So what can we do with text? Well, we can have this, this, or this. We can have scrolling credits like in a movie. We can have a horizontally scrolling message down the bottom of the screen. We can have hollow text with an image behind it. And we can have a message that pops in and pops out again. So let's get started. We'll make a new video editing window, and first I'll just add some color down the bottom so we can have a background to our text. Expand that out for our 10 seconds. Click on bring up its brightness and change its color to be reasonable for a background. And I'm going to save that as tutorial 5. It's always a good idea when working with text in particular to save early and save often, because I have found this particular version of Blender does tend to crash when working with text. Now to add some text, we'll put our playhead where we want the text to go. Press Shift A or click on the Add menu and add text. The text is attached to the cursor, so we can drop it where we want it in the timeline, or we just hit enter and then Shift S to snap it to the playhead. I'll move it down there. And now to enter what we want to say, up here in this window with the mouse over the viewer, if I press Tab, I'm now editing the text. So I'll type in Control A to select all and type in this. Press Tab again to leave editing mode, and on the strip properties here I can change the color, say to red. Change the font. I'll need to choose a font by clicking open, and open type in my case. I'll go to enter display extra bold. Once I've loaded that font, it will show up in this menu here, and I don't have to open the file again another time. Now I can size the text up like so, and then with the mouse over this window, press G to grab it and move it into the position where I want it. The first thing I can do is give the text an outline, so I'll click on the outline box here and expand that. And if we zoom in a bit, we can see I can increase the width to make the outline quite big or quite thin. So that just makes the text stand out. And in particular, if you have text over a background that might sometimes be white and might sometimes be dark, giving it an outline in a contrary color to the text is going to help it remain visible. Press Home to fit that into the window. Now what I'm going to do is press Shift D to duplicate the text box and move it over here, so that that is now going to show up 1 second into the video. Grab this and move it down to this corner, round about here. This time I won't have an outline, but I'll have a shadow. So I'll click on Shadow, and I can change the offset, how far away the shadow is. I can change the color of the shadow, and I can blur the shadow. Let's zoom in to see that. So that's blurred, less blurred. So that gives me the shadow effect. Another thing I can do to make the text stand out is to put it over a box. So I'll duplicate that again with Shift D, put it there, move the timeline, grab it and move it up to this corner, and uncheck shadow, and this time I'll check box. And now it puts a box around the entire piece of text, and the box will expand to fit the amount of text that you have. If I expand this, I can make the box any color I want. Right now it's at 70% opacity. If I make it full opacity, then the box will be darker and the background won't shine through. I can make it fully black. I can make it fully white. So that's putting a box around the text. I'll make one more copy. It's selected. Put the playhead there, grab it and move it down, and this time I'll get rid of the box and have an outline and a shadow. and make it a bit bigger, like so. And of course we can change the color. Now the other thing you can do is you grab it and move it over there, press tab to edit, and I can type in more things. This is my message. Now if I want to put a new line in, all I have to do is put the cursor where I want the new line and press enter, and I can have a new line in the text. Now you'll notice that the text is also wrapping when it hits the edge of the window. Now imagine that you wanted to have the text off to one side of an image. So I'll press tab to leave that editing mode, move it over here, and say I have an image on the left and I don't want the text to overwrite it. I can reduce the wrap width. Currently it's 1, which means 100%. I'll drag it to the left, and now the message has got less wide. I'll have to drop the size down as well just to fit it in, like so. So I can adjust the amount of room that the message takes as a percentage of the full window width. Now to do the scrolling text, I could make a text box and make that scroll, but if I have a lot of information, a lot of people's names, the text box might be unwieldy to use. So in this particular case, I've set that up in Inkscape, which is a free program for editing vector graphics. In Inkscape, I've set up a couple of text boxes. There's the first box, which is the roles that people play, and the second box is their names. I've aligned them so they go together, and this one here on the left is in a bold font and this one is in not bold. The document is in the same width as the video, so that it'll fit neatly on the video screen, and it is quite long and thin, as you can see. Now by exporting that into a PNG file, I can then import that into Blender. So I'll use the add menu, add image or sequence, and grab my PNG file, which is the credits. Drop it here in channel 1. Now we can see if we zoom out that the text is going to be quite small and the thing fits the screen entirely, which we don't really want. So I'll apply scale to fill so that it is now going to be the width of the screen. And if we zoom out, what I'm going to do is press G and Y and move it below the window where the checkerboard, which is where our video is going to be. So first I'll extend this out to be the full 10 seconds for the credits. With the credits below where the sequencer view is, I will set a keyframe for the Y position by pressing I with the mouse over the Y position here. Then move the playhead to the end of the sequence, press G and Y to move the credits above the sequencer view, and press I again. That sets the end keyframe. Now if I press space to play, the credits should scroll into view like this. The speed with which they scroll by is entirely dependent on how much time you give for the credits to appear. Now it seemed to me that the credits seem to slow down towards the end, so what I might do is drag this down. I'll put the mouse here where in the corner where it turns into a crosshairs, drag downwards to make a new Blender pane, and click here to change that to dope sheet. And now change the interpolation mode to linear. That means it'll scroll up in a linear fashion. It won't sort of speed up and slow down. So if we wanted that to go faster, all we have to do is move the keyframe to the left and it would go more quickly because it has to reach the end point sooner. So that is scrolling text. For scrolling text along the bottom of the screen, first let's grab an image, drop that in there. I'll just delete the sound by alt-clicking on the soundtrack and pressing delete or X. So now we just see the train going by. Next thing we'll do is add a color bar for the text to appear on top of. So I'll add color, drop it at the playhead, extend that out to the end of the sequence, go up here to the properties, expand crop, and bring the top down like so. Then up here I will change the opacity down to about half, which gives us a grey bar at the bottom of the screen. Now we want the text itself, so I'll add a text object, make that the width of the timeline, press tab to edit it. Press tab to stop editing, choose the font. Choose the color, and grab it, move it down to where we want it in the bottom part of the screen. Now to make it slide in, we'll need to zoom out a bit so we can see, press G and X to move it off the screen. Put the cursor here, press I to set a keyframe, which we will notice has put the position, scale and rotation all in yellow. Move the playhead to the end, press G and X to move this to the other side of the screen, press I again to set another keyframe. Now if we put the playhead back and press play, the message will scroll across the bottom of the screen like that. You can make it a bit bigger. Maybe give it an outline. Maybe give it a shadow. Once again, the message is slowing down at the end, which I don't really want, so I will drag that down to make another pane, change the pane type to dope sheet, and then press key, interpolation mode, linear. So now it will be smoothly interpolated and it won't speed up or slow down. It looks like the message disappeared before it reached the end. That would be because I made it larger. Let's see, we're on the keyframe, which we can tell because these are all yellow. I'll grab it and move it in the X direction a bit more. And then hit I to change the position, X keyframe. And now it should disappear completely before reappearing. Now I'll demonstrate how we can have hollow text. So I'll drag in the forest scene into a new Blender sequence like that. Alt click on the sound to get rid of the sound, and then add in the text box, Shift A to add. And I'll put that underneath, expand that out. Just for the minute, we'll put it on top. Press Tab to edit it, Control A to select all forest. Tab to stop editing, choose a font. Make it bigger by dragging across the font size like that. Now what we're going to do is use this as a mask. So I'm going to put it underneath here. I'm going to click on the forest strip and add a modifier. Modifier mask. And the mask is going to be a strip, and the strip is going to be the text. So what that's doing is where the text is white, the forest will show through, and where the text is black, it won't. So it is basically masking out what we're seeing. And now for a final example of having text appear and disappear, I'll add a color box first. Add another color box, which is going to be our lower third strip. Drop the opacity down and crop it. by dropping the top down like so. Maybe make the opacity a bit higher. Now let's press Shift A to add some text. Press Tab to edit it. Tab again, choose a font. Make it a bit bigger. Change it to another colour. Maybe give it a shadow. Now this time I want the message to appear. Let's center it first. I want the message to appear quickly, stay there, and then disappear. So let's grab it and move it in the X direction, out of view. And now we'll make that the length of our 10 seconds. Now I'm going to set a keyframe there. Go in 1 second. And move that into view. On the X position, I'll set another keyframe. Then 1 second before the end, I'll set another keyframe. That means between second number 1 and second number 9, it will stay in that spot. Move the playhead up to 10 seconds, G and then X, and move it off the screen. Set another keyframe. So we need 4 keyframes for this effect. Now we'll move the playhead to the start, zoom in, and see what the effect is. The second keyframe moves it into position, the third keyframe holds it there, and then the fourth keyframe moves it away. So that's how you can do messages that appear and disappear. Of course, you could have just faded the message in, so I'll right click here and clear keyframes, and instead click on Fade In and Out. Now I'll move that to the start. The message fades in, and then when it gets towards the end, it'll fade out again. So that's another way of making messages appear and disappear. So that's an introduction to using text in Blender. Thanks for watching.